Gosh, I think, of all the women I've worked with and myself, and I think that confidence is knowing who you are and what your purpose is and your call and living from that. And with that, you're not constantly second guessing. You're not wondering, oh, is this the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? It takes away the uncertainty, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Welcome, everybody, to Unleash Your Greatness, and I'm excited for a guest today that I have, Melissa. Thank you for coming on the show, and I'm sorry I'm going to butcher the last name. I'm so horrible. You're going to have to remind me how to say her last name.
No worries. You're totally fine. It's Rohlfs.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you for being on the show. Melissa is a certified holistic health and life coach. She specializes in helping women overcome their sugar craving, as well as their stress and their emotional eating, so that they can be more calm, confident, and in control of their life. And so I'm excited to have her on and kind of tell her journey of why she got into that field, because that's amazing and such a needed topic. So, and I'm excited to talk more about it. So, Melissa, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Adam. I'm excited to be here and talk to your guests.
Absolutely. So, tell me a little bit about your journey of how you went. I know you've got 2 kids, if I remember right.
Yeah.
So you have 2 children, and you've gone through kind of these stages of eating, like not eating, and then binge eating, and I know that's going to play into your story. I just want you to kind of explain like where you were, and then how you got into being a health coach, and specifically helping women with their sugar and eating problems.
Sure. So it's kind of funny because I think anybody who knows me from childhood would be really surprised that I'm doing this. They probably are surprised I'm doing this. Because I had always used food and specifically sugar to kind of self-soothe or for comfort. I remember being a little girl and taking, sugar and sweet treats, Pop-Tarts and candy into my room and eating it as a child, and got in trouble for that, of course. But that's kind of, I think, my earliest memory of like having this attachment to food for more than just nourishment and fuel.
Yeah.
And that, of course, carried with me through life and through college and high school, before college, obviously, but then later into life and having, kids and the stress of that. It really kind of hit the ground, I guess, or I guess the moment that kind of brought me to my knees was about 10 years ago, when we had a newborn son and a 2-year-old daughter who had some undiagnosed food allergies and some sensory challenges. My husband was traveling for work, and I was just diagnosed with PTSD from childhood trauma. So I was eating all of the sweets to try to comfort. And I remember taking our son to the chiropractor, and the chiropractor was like, well, what did you feed him? He seems really fussy and off. And I'm like, well, I ate a whole bunch of Oreos. And she was like, how many? And I had to confess that I had eaten the whole package of Oreos. And so since I was nursing him, that was causing him to be fussy and off. And she gently and kindly said, I know you're stressed and overwhelmed, but food is probably not the way to navigate that. So that's really kind of where my journey started. I did a lot of inner work and healing from there. And that's why I became a coach, because I knew there were women who were where I was, who maybe felt stuck or felt out of control or felt like they could never be free. And because I found that freedom, I want them to know that it's possible.
That's super amazing. And, I think there's so many things that I want to unpack there, but, talking about stress in general, and everybody deals with stress differently, right? In your case, you were eating and probably eating the wrong things like Oreos, not a good thing. And sugar obviously can have a major impact on how we feel, how we just kind of brain fog, and we're just not thinking straight. And maybe short term it makes us feel better, but long term it doesn't help with the stress, right? The stress is always going to be there. And uh, learning how to manage that successfully is a key that I definitely want to pick your brain on, because you've been able to overcome, putting the Oreos aside and the other junk food. And I will be fully transparency. I still eat my junk food. I'm not 100% sugar free. I see the value of it, but I do like to have my little Reese's peanut butter cup every once in a while. And
Absolutely.
but definitely I see the value in, either completely reducing
Mm-hmm.
the amount that you intake or completely getting rid of it altogether. And so kind of tell me, I guess, what has that done for you as you've cut sugars out, and it's not just sugars, right? There's so many bad foods, processed food and things like that also have a lot of horrible side effects on our well-being and our body and our emotional and mental state. But how's that really changed your life? Because obviously you're in a much better place. You're handling stress better, I would assume. Um, so tell me a little bit more about that, and kind of what that journey looked like going from, because, well, I have some other questions that I'd love to just get your insights on, but let's start with that. I don't want to overwhelm you. So
No, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah, I think, that was the big change, obviously, was sugar. I'm not completely sugar free, but I've reduced it quite a bit. I'm not using it as a crutch as I used to. And
awesome.
along with that, we've gone away from the processed package and we eat more of a whole foods lifestyle.
Yeah.
And that's had a tremendous impact on my mental health, my emotional health, my physical health. I'm not curled up in fetal position on the couch anymore, at the end of the day, because I'm exhausted, and I'm not anxious like I used to be. I'm not angry. The mood swings are gone. The brain fog is gone. I mean, it's been such a game changing experience. And I just want everybody to know that they can have that. Because I think when you're in that place of being curled up from exhaustion and feeling anxious and frustrated and overwhelmed and all the things, you don't think you can do anything besides that, or there is anything besides that. And there absolutely is. And it's amazing and awesome and powerful and life changing. So that whole thing has absolutely changed my life. And one of the first questions I will ask people when, they'll say, oh, I'm struggling with something. What's your diet like? Because there's a huge correlation between food and mood.
Yeah. Yeah, true. I agree 100%. And so stress, let's talk a little bit about stress. Well, first, actually, I want to pick your brain more on the whole sugar thing. And I think it's great that you've said you've reduced it, but you're not completely eliminated. I think that it's super hard for anybody to completely just cold turkey quit sugar out of their entire diet. It can be done, but it's super difficult, especially in all the foods that are out there right now. Um, and obviously, we can't completely cut sugars out because there's natural sugars in fruits and things, which are good sugars, but still sugar nonetheless. But I have this little bit of I guess debate with my wife over sugar, because she does uh, get after me a little bit every so often when I do eat my Reese's peanut butter cups and stuff. And she's not completely sugar free either, but we've had this debate about sugar being correlated or same addiction as like cocaine and things like that. And I can kind of see, like, yes, people crave sugar, but being at a level of being an addiction like cocaine is like, you do it once, you have like a 99% like addiction rate, and people are like, out willing to do anything to get that next fix. I don't find people really like, I need my next sugar fix, right? And maybe it's easier to get a sugar fix. I don't know, but there's definitely a correlation there of getting off of it and trying to stay off of it or reduce it. Um, but yeah, I don't know. What's your thoughts on that? I definitely see that it can be a struggle. I don't know that I would say it's as bad as cocaine. I know it maybe highlights the brain the same way and all those things, but a lot of things do. So I don't know. I kind of want to pick your brain, being more of a sugar expert probably than myself. What you think on that?
Yeah, it actually, there is a statistic that says it's more addictive. Um, and I think part of that could be, Adam, I think that it's legal, it's socially acceptable.
Sure.
People aren't going to judge you or look down on you if you're, declining sugar. They may actually judge you more if you do decline it, I should say. But I think it's almost become this socially acceptable thing that we do in society. I mean, if you think about parades, what are they throwing out? Candy.
Sure.
At churches, at schools, it's huge. It's huge in our culture. So I think it is addictive, and I think part of that is because of the pathways in the brain and the dopamine release that it creates. And I think there's that whole scientific side of it. But I also think it's not judged as hard as maybe the alcohol or the drug addiction is, because it's legal
Yeah.
and given out freely.
True. True. And I'm not saying that it's not. I do believe that it is. And there's obviously many times that I'm like, oh, I just want a little piece of candy or whatever. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that that is an addiction to an extent. I have a hard time when people are saying things like it's as addictive as cocaine, because most people who are addicted to cocaine usually have to go to rehab. I know people who completely cut sugar out and don't have to go to any rehab, right? Maybe it's hard, but they don't have to go to rehab. So I guess that's my correlation. And that's a completely different subject, but I do believe it is addictive, and I do have my cravings like anybody else. And like I say, Reese's peanut butter cups is like that's my choice of sugar, I guess, if you will. So Easter time, the little Easter eggs are my favorite. But yeah, so let's I guess I want to kind of pick your brain a little bit about stress and healthy ways that we can deal with stress, because I think that's super important to you know get away from these unhealthy habits that many people have. I know I have them, and I believe that everybody has some form of unhealthy habit that they use to deal with stress, right? So, what are your top kind of recommendations for dealing with stress when you're working with people?
It's so funny because I just talked about this with a client yesterday, and she was so sweet because, we're kind of talking through an experience that she had. And I just said, if this were to happen again, what would you like to see, be done differently for you? And she was like, well, I want to do this and this and this. And I said, okay, so what do you need in order for that to happen? And she was like, I guess I don't know, because I've always gone to the food for that. I don't know what to replace it with. So I love that you're addressing that, because I think
Yeah,
if people can have tools in their toolbox to reach upon and draw upon in those times, that's a game changer, right?
for sure.
So I think, some things you can do are take some deep breaths, because a lot of times if we just stop and we just take a few deep breaths, that will calm down the nervous system, and it will kind of, create balance in our bodies, which is usually what we're looking for when we're craving something. So taking some deep breaths is really powerful. If you need to take like a time out, she's a mom. And I said, if you need to take like a mommy time out, go for it. Like just something to kind of decompress. If you need to journal or make a list or just find something that you can do in that moment instead of reaching for the sweets, that can be really powerful. So
Yeah.
there's a couple of things, but I think it all depends on the situation and people's likes and dislikes and what works. And that's why I like the deep breathing, because you can do that anywhere. Nobody knows that you're doing it.
Right. No. And I agree 100%. And I think a lot of it comes down to what we're used to, like I say, the habits. And so we get stressed out like, oh, this piece of chocolate's going to make me feel better. And if we can break out of that, change our state, right? Whenever you get stuck in that moment of I need chocolate or I need sugar or I need, Oreos or whatever, and you can change that state, and breathing helps you do that, right? It helps you, or going out for a walk, or it really is the same concept as any addiction. If you're a smoker, it's the same thing, right? Most people are smokers. The hardest thing they have to break is the nicotine is hard, but it's the social thing, right? They go out on their smoke breaks, they talk with the other smokers, they interact, and they have dinner, and then they go out and have a cigarette or whatever. And it's breaking out of those things that then trigger in our mind, right? It's all about triggers, uh, and it's the same thing I believe with sugar or eating or anything. And if we can just change our state and get out of those when we feel those triggers and change what we normally do to something else, like breathing. So I love that you brought that up because I'm a huge um, believer in the benefits of breathing, deep breaths. Take 10 deep breaths, get outside. It's all about, for me, I call it changing your state, basically, right? Do something differently than what you've always done that's more beneficial. And I think that's what you're talking about. Journaling is great uh, as well. And I find that super powerful because when you can get kind of reflective on what's really going on here and think about it, work through it, right? And that's what journaling does for you.
Yes. And
Is
I think our society is fast paced and we don't really give ourselves permission to do that. But I think that's where the power is when we can step back and really become aware of what we're doing and why we're doing it. Then we can change because we know what and why we're doing it and what triggers us.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I love that you shared those. It's simple. Like, I mean, it's not hard. Like, it literally take 10 breaths. It takes what, 30 seconds, a minute, maybe at the most. It's not a hard thing. It's not time consuming, and it really does. It opens you up. It helps open up your meridian. It helps get rid of brain fog because you're sending oxygen to the brain. It really is pretty powerful. And then again, like that evaluation with journaling and that self-reflection, and that does take more time, but so beneficial. Um, Other things that I like is, and maybe you can tell me if these are in line with what you also teach, but meditation, again, just being alone in your thoughts and your breathing. um, like I say, I like going outside, going for a walk every day. I take my dog for a walk, and part of that is to kind of be by myself as well as get away from the five daughters and the wife that I have. So there's a lot of estrogen. So the
Yes.
dog have to get out of the house for a minute, but just that 15-20 minute walk is huge in my life and really helps just be powerful. So it I think a lot of people think it needs to be harder than it really is, I guess, is what I'm getting at. And it doesn't need to be super hard. And, willpower only goes so far where you tell yourself, I'm not going to do the Oreos today. I'm not going to do the Reese's peanut butter cups. That only goes so far. And you just have to change what you've been doing instead of trying to use pure willpower because it's only going to last for so long before.
And I think you can talk yourself into craving it at that point, right? Like, oh, I've been telling myself no to the Oreos and the peanut butter cups for so long. Now I want the dang things.
Right. It's been so good. I'm gonna just have one, and then next thing
Right.
you've eaten 15 Oreos or whatever,
Yep.
or a whole package, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah. So yeah, that's amazing. And so I know that you also help women feel empowering them to basically take back their life, to have confidence, to have uh, dealing with emotional eating or just stress in general, um, which is so beneficial. Kind of take me through what some of the common things you see as you work with women, though, with you know, and I think everybody has similar struggles, but what are some of the common ones that you see with women as they struggle with being empowered, right? That's such a kind of a buzzword, right? But it really is such a, I guess, good way to tell people what you're trying to accomplish, empower people, and we all want to be empowered. So what are some of the kind of main things that you see that women struggle with?
I think a lot of women struggle with the one size fits all mentality, meaning the diet and weight loss industry. Okay, my neighbor did this plan. I'm going to do it because it worked for her. And then it doesn't work for them because we're different, we're unique. God made us all different ways. But because it worked for them, we assume it will work for us. And then it may not. And then we might fall into the shame and the guilt and feeling like a failure and just kind of this place that nobody really wants to be. So I really love to teach women how to figure out what works for them and their unique body type because one person's, healthiest food for them might be something that you're intolerant to and you can't have. So I think we've kind of been misled in that way to believe that one size fits all and what works for one works for all. And it really doesn't. And it's so frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of it's, and this goes for both men and women, but specifically for women is, with media, social media, with uh, TV and movies and everything, and we see these beautiful people on the screen. We're like, oh, I can never look like that, and we judge ourselves so much on what we see on TV, and then I think we feel like failures. Like, oh, I'm sure that so and so on TV never eats a case of or a package of Oreos, and so I'm never gonna get there. I'm never gonna look like that, and we judge ourselves so harshly. And I think it goes for same with men as well. I know in my life I've judged myself by you know what I see on TV and things, and it's just difficult to get past that, I guess. But I think I love what you said that one size doesn't fit all because we're all different, we're all unique, and we all have different body types, we all have different sizes, and I think the goal really is to just be healthy overall and not worry so much about what the scale says. Or obviously we like to see that number come down a little bit, but that's not everything. And so I also wanted to just kind of point out that we use the word diet so often, and my in-laws are a perfect example to this. And I know they'll never listen to this, so I can use them an example, because they probably don't even know what a podcast is. But they go do these diets, right? And they lose weight, and then they go off the diet, and next thing you know, they're up to where they were again. And uh, rubber band diets, I guess, is what a lot of people call them. And really, it should be, instead of just I'm going to go on a diet, it should be a lifestyle shift, right? I mean, what are your thoughts on that? What do you is that kind of what in line with what you try to promote or teach? Or
Oh, it totally is. And have you ever noticed that I find this so interesting? The word diet spells out DIE, right?
right?
But then lifestyle change spells out life. So I think that's really fitting. You either are choosing health or you're not. Like, I feel like we have associated food with weight, and it's so much more than that. And I really want people to see the whole big picture of how it works together, because weight's just a very small part of that. But I think that's what we've lumped it in this big bucket with diet and weight loss and food. And there's so much more to it than that. So yeah, that's exactly what I teach, to answer your question.
Well, and that's a good point, because there is so much more to it, and we're just in the last 10 years or so really understanding that the gut has so much impact on everything, right?
Mhm.
Like that's kind of a big thing right now is the gut. Like, get the gut healthy, and it's so important, and we're learning how important it is that we never even understood that 10, 15 years ago or whatever. And it really does affect your emotions. It affects your mental state, your stress levels, uh, your whole well-being, really. And so I love that you brought that up, that promoting that. And my third daughter, we learned firsthand of how important gut is. She was born with Hirschsprung's disease, and had a lot of complications when she was young, and she had to have a surgery where they brought a stoma out, and she had the bag that she pooped in for the first 2 years of her life and everything. And then as soon as we got her fixed from that, she got C. diff, and
Mhm.
which C. diff is a gut disorder, right? It's a disease in the gut where the bad bacteria kills all the good bacteria, and we saw firsthand like how important that was in her life, to make sure we're giving her good probiotics and keeping her gut healthy, because she can't have antibiotics anymore. If she has antibiotics, her C. diff comes back. It never goes away. And so yeah, I love that. It's so critical to our well-being. So thanks for pointing that out. So
Yeah, absolutely. And the immune system too. I mean, there's a huge correlation with gut and our immune system.
sure, absolutely. Yeah. Like I say, my daughter, she, we saw it firsthand with the C. diff, and if she ever gets any infection or anything anymore, she can't have antibiotics because she'll get super sick. And so her immune system will go right down to almost nothing. And then she's prone for everything at that point. So, yeah, I agree. Um, so, tell me a little bit more about how the adjustment in your family has gone from, because I'm sure it wasn't easy, right? You probably were like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And then you got some pushback. And I know we've had that in my family. My wife has tried things, gluten free and trying to cut out sugars and stuff. And to be honest, I'm usually the one that's like, I like my bread, I like my tortillas, and, um, I like my cheese and whatever. So I can't imagine it was this like everybody was just all gung ho on board, like, yeah, let's do this. I think that's one of the biggest struggles, honestly, with trying to make that type of lifestyle shift is just family not being on board and supporting it. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that. What maybe can help in those situations? I'm definitely open for that input because I know that I could do better at that. So
Yeah, that's probably my biggest struggle, to be honest with you, as a mom. So our daughter, we discovered she had wheat and dairy intolerances, and then our son had them, and we're like, well, they got them from somewhere. So I got tested, and so we just made it a decision at that point with the three of us. We're just going to cut it out. We're going to go gluten free, dairy free, and we've been that way for probably 6 years now. And by and large, it's gone pretty well. I've learned how to swap and substitute and make things taste just as good for the most part. So that's been helpful. But I think the dinner time is tricky because not everybody likes the same thing, and I don't want to be a short order cook. And so I just encourage them, like, try this, this is what we've made, try it. And if you don't like it, you can make something else. They're 10 and 12, they're able to make scrambled eggs, or they can do something else if they desire. But it's hard, and you want to honor and respect everybody's palate and taste buds, but at what expense too. So I don't think I found that balance, to be honest with you.
and I think it's always a moving target, right?
Mhm.
For any family, because especially with young kids, like kids, their preferences change. They're especially when you're like, hey, you can't eat that because it's not good for you. You have this allergy, and they don't understand that always. I mean, your kids probably are old enough they get it, but it's still not easy for them, I'm sure. And so to have that constant moving target of what they like, what they don't like, and kids are just hard because I mean my daughter, my third, again, the one that had the problems, she's like the pickiest eater ever. And so it's just tough getting her to want to try new things or anything. And so yeah, I can see how that's still a challenge and always probably going to be a struggle for a while. I mean, until they get old enough to kind of fend for themselves, right? um,
Right. But then at that point, Adam, I'm like, what if we, have raised them a certain way and they're like, I grew up this way, and they just go so far off the end.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. And I think, at that point, and that could be the case with any situation that you try to teach your kids, right? Whether it's how you tried to train them or teach them to be respectful or be good in school or be work ethic or spiritual beliefs or anything like that. They could totally rebel at a moment's notice when they're out on their own. And eventually I think they'll be like, yeah, dad were probably smart and understood what was more important than I did at that time. And I guess that's the beautiful thing about life is we're all going to make our mistakes and do stupid things. I know that I still do. And, um, but that is a good point to bring up is, we try to teach them the best we can. And then from there, the day will come when they have to make their own decisions. Right. And as a parent, you hate to see that, but at the same time, you also know that they have to just spread their wings and decide what they want. So, and you just keep encouraging them. So, um, yeah. Uh, so I, I know that you work specifically with women But do you ever notice things, or do men ever reach out to you and kind of bring up any of these issues with them? I know the men typically, and I'm probably one of those, is not as forthcoming with these types of things, eating and I want to be on a diet and stuff. I know there are men out there, but I think most men don't. It's just not something that's on the forefront of their mind, right? They'd rather be like, I'm just going to go to the gym. And I mean,
Yep.
that's often my mentality, right? I
Yeah.
go out and I run and I'm good. I can eat my Reese's eggs. I'm okay. And would you ever have men that ever reach out to you and say, hey, what can you do to help me, or what can you do to help our family, my wife, and our whole family as a whole? I don't know. Like, I'm just I always find it interesting that most women who work with women still have men that are interested in what you do. So, from a man's perspective, I'm interested in hearing that. So.
I haven't. This was kind of interesting though. I did have one situation where someone reached out and she's like, my husband said I should reach out to you. So he didn't like reach out on her behalf, but he told her that she should. I think that's probably the most like, in that situation that I've been.
And maybe that's just the loving husband saying, hey, you keep saying you need help. Maybe this person is your answer. So, and that's great. And I think lots of times as you probably work with women, and just like you did, right? You knew something had to change, and you made those changes in your life, and that has just cascaded out to your family and helped and benefited them. And so I guess that's really the most important thing is the work you do in helping women. They can then take that into their homes, and that can benefit the whole family as a whole. So that's beautiful and wonderful that you're doing that work. So
Thank you. And that's why I love moms, because it's such a ripple effect on
yeah,
society. I feel like obviously parents have such an impact on their kids, and we're raising up the next generation. So if we can do it well and do it in a way that is honoring and respectful and, just lays a good foundation for them, I think that's pretty exciting to think about.
yeah, agreed. And mothers really are the heartbeat of a family. The dad is critical, I think, as well. I believe in both husband and wives, but I think the mother really is the heartbeat, and she can have the most effect on children specifically, because you typically, the dad, and I realize that I'm stereotyping here, but typically the dad's out working. I know women work too, but the woman really is the caregiver usually, and the one who's sensitive to what the children are going through, what they're need in their life. I know that my wife is much more in tune to our kids than I am on that front. They'll say things, and then a week later I'll be like, what about this? And they'll be like, we told you all about that. Her friend and blah blah blah. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So I don't know. I think most men are probably oblivious. And again, I'm stereotyping, probably based on my own experience. But um, yeah, so I agree. I think women have mothers can have a huge impact on the effect of the family. So I think it's beautiful that you're out there changing the lives of families through the moms and the wives out there. So kudos to you. Uh,
Thank you.
so there's so much that goes into helping anybody through building confidence. So I want to just touch on confidence for just a minute if we can. And I know that we've been going for about a half an hour or so, but confidence is like one of my passions. Like, how do you build confidence? And so I just want to kind of pick your brain a little bit on how best you help women build their confidence in themselves. And I know we've talked a little bit about self-image and don't judge yourself on what other people do or are. But at the core, like, what's the main thing that you think is the most beneficial for women in their confidence?
Gosh, I think, of all the women I've worked with and myself, and I think that confidence is knowing who you are and what your purpose is and your call and living from that. And with that, you're not constantly second guessing. You're not wondering, oh, is this the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Like it takes away the uncertainty, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because it's so easy, especially as a mom, to second guess yourself and doubt yourself. And is this the right thing? And am I doing this right? And oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And just to have that alleviated and not have that mental mess is really freeing. So I think it's really knowing who you are, what you stand for, what you're about, and learning to listen to yourself. I think that's the main thing. And so many of us have been taught to outsource that and not listen to ourselves. And then we second guess. And it's a hard place because I was there for so long.
Yeah. Yeah. And that I like that you did say that we oftentimes outsource that, and, we look for validation, like I'm doing the right thing, or, we want people to tell us that we're doing okay, and things like that. And I think it really does come down to just knowing who you are and what you're capable of doing, and then having a belief in yourself that you are able to do those things. And that it really is, I think, at the core what creates confidence. So thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. Um, so to before we wrap things up, I want people to know, especially women, or I guess husbands who want to point women towards you, where they can get a hold of you, where they can reach you, and where they can learn more about what you do in helping women.
Yeah, absolutely. My website is www.free, the number two, the letter B, coaching.com. So it's freetobecoaching.com. Facebook is Happy Healthy Mama, and my Facebook group is Happy Healthy Mama Tribe. So that's it.
Very good. And I know you also have a free resource about helping kick sugar cravings. They can find that on your website, I would assume.
Absolutely. I have lots of resources there.
Oh, great. And I will also post all those links below this podcast or YouTube video, depending on where you're listening to it, so that you can go, and those who are listening can reach out to Melissa if you feel that you could use a little help with sugar cravings, stress. I'm assuming along with stress can come depression, or just emotional health overall, especially based around like eating and things like that. Um, so to kind of wrap things up, I always like to ask this question, and it is: if you were to say there's one to maybe three things that someone needs to unleash the greatness within themselves, what would that be?
I think you are capable of anything.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And sometimes you just need somebody to help pull that out of you. Because I think a lot of times we're our own worst critic, but you are capable. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Uh, Such a powerful yet simple message, because you're right. We are capable, and you just have to be willing to put forth the effort and make the change in your life. So, thank you for sharing that. And what a great reminder, even to myself, where there's times where I feel like maybe I'm not capable, and I need to be reminded that of myself. And, I'm a coach as well. So, I think all of us can use that reminder in our life that we are capable. We can achieve amazing results. We just have to be willing to make the change and put in the work and the effort. So, absolutely great message. So, Melissa, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate having you on the show and sharing your perspective and your insights on, sugar and dieting. And I know that I probably threw some things that out there that were kind of crazy and you weren't expecting, but it was great discussion. I appreciate it so much. And yeah, thank you for being on the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me. You were fine. No worries. It was great. I love it.
It's so much fun. And for those who are listening, be sure to reach out to Melissa if there's anything that you felt that she can benefit you in your life, because I know that she can. She's got an amazing personality and a great energy about her, and I've absolutely just loved our conversation. So reach out to her, go to her website. Again, you can find those links below this podcast or this YouTube, depending on where you're listening to it. And everybody, go out there and unleash the greatness within yourself today and be the best that you can. I know that it's there, and just keep going forward and have an amazing day.